All right. The rumor mill is swirling around the trade market right now with the Colorado Avalanche. And if they want to get a deal done before the freeze, they need to act now because that thing ends at midnight tonight. Will the Avs do anything or wait till this freeze is over? A lot to get to on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets. LOPN_Avalanche on the Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche on the Instagram threads, Locked On Avalanche at gmail.com for all your questions, comments, concerns, and opinions. And follow us over on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you are subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below. When you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, and we get your opinions on everything Avalanche and questions, which if you are watching on YouTube, you can see that. Our third segment will be some mailbag segment from our subtext people. Very good ones. Not all Avalanche ones, mostly Avalanche ones, but there's some good non-Avalanche questions in there, which I always like taking. Little sidebar every once in a while. Can't beat that.
We could be more than Locked On Avalanche.
Yes, we locked on everything. Locked on kitchen sink is what Denker and I used to call it in the off season. All right, where we're going to start real quick is what like we usually do following a game, day after a game, and kind of have our morning leftovers, as we call them, and kind of just things that have stuck with us for the most recent game with the Avalanche, or games, if you want to include the whole weekend. Anything sticking with you, sir?
Yes, first of all, who's that first star of the week?
First star of the week, Nathan MacKinnon.
Nathan MacKinnon. Wow, he had a rough start, didn't he? My goodness.
I would say a rough start, just not this. It wasn't this, but
well,
yeah.
Where does this compared to that start? Where does that land him on points in the NHL right now? That'd be number 2.
Oh, did he get to 2? I knew he was 3, but he's up to 2 now. Okay,
he's at 2, and who's leading the league in assists right now?
It's got to be him.
That'd be Nathan MacKinnon with 33 assists. Yeah. That lands him with 14 goals. It's 47 points, good enough for second place. Yeah. So it's one of those that we talked about. We can't wait to see Nate be Nate. Nate has been quietly Nate, and now he's loudly Nate, and now he's first star of the week.
And it's funny because when you see him play, like you can see the scoring touches back in terms of goals. Like he was in a little bit of a rut there, but it's not like he's just firing them off like every single game. But he is looking to facilitate and looking to include his line mates and he's almost like looking to pass first. If it's not the power play, even sometimes on the power play, he is looking for that pass because I think he's just feeling it when it comes to just racking up assists. So, and then that it's like the running game in football, right? You get the running game going, it opens up the passing game. If people are afraid that Nathan MacKinnon is going to be like passing and just on the dime, tape to tape passes, that's going to make them play kind of passing lanes, which is just going to open up shooting lanes for him. So he's playing chess while other people are playing checkers right now. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's making play action work. You think
he is. Yeah.
He's going run with the assists, and then he could pass and snipe from the blue line. So Nathan MacKinnon, our quarterback.
So while he is taking off, and that whole first line seems to be taking off now the question comes in, and it's going to be there until they make a move after this Tomas Tatar deal. People are kind of wondering, okay, what is the plan here for the Avalanche? Nobody really thinks they just did that just because. They feel like there's a second chapter here, and what is it? And you're starting to hear grumblings of what the Avalanche could potentially do. So how we're going to cover this, Kyle, is we're just going to go off of media outlets that are reporting on things, because I first of all, like I love it, but I'm terrible at picking who I think the Avalanche are going to go after. And I blame the Avalanche for that. because they don't tell you anything. They are very good about keeping things tight-lipped, and we don't know who they really are targeting. They do that intentionally. It's very difficult to do in this day and age. So because of that, they make all of us look like fools for saying like, oh, I think they're going to go after this guy.
Yep.
And then you hear that they weren't even after him at all. So we're going to just borrow from what other people are reporting. And then if they're wrong, then they're the ones that are wrong and not us. And we don't look like we have egg on our face. I think that's that's the only fair way to do it. I don't know.
I was born looking like this, though. I can't help it.
So I will say, like, one of the most reputable journalists out there who if he's saying it, there's some truth to it. That's Elliot Friedman. I think he's second to none when it comes to getting information correctly. He doesn't just put it out there just for clicks or just to be the first one to have it. He does things the right way. And he said on 32 Thoughts, not only does he feel that the Avalanche are in the mix for something, and again, he doesn't know what it is. He feels like other teams around the league took notice when the Avalanche made that trade for Tatar, or for getting rid of Tatar, and as if to say, like, okay, like, now other teams are nervous now because the Avalanche could be on the move for something. I don't know. I can't say big. They just don't have the cap space to do something big, but something maybe like significant is maybe the better word. And the one that you're going to hear about, there's always one guy that the Avalanche are always tied to. And this year it seems to be Lindholm on Calgary. We'll start there. There's three guys we're going to bring up here in this segment for the trade deadline, or not trade deadline, but trade rumors. He's the number one guy right now that you're hearing. Could the Avalanche make this work? They could if they got to get rid of a contract to make it work. Because he's at 4.8, I think. I'll look that up to get the definite number, but he's in that vicinity. What do you think?
I know that's the cool, sexy name, and the contract and production. It's one of those, especially right now. We're talking about right before the freeze, and I understand like the Avalanche made their move, the league's on notice, Colorado's making a move. I don't know if it's right now, and it's Lindholm. We're not saying JT Miller because he's third in points. We just talked about Nathan MacKinnon being second. That's usually JT Miller that every year, or Chris Kreider. Remember that? That was so much fun. That he was a surefire thing to come to Colorado. Now Lindholm. This rumor also popped up in February. This is not just out of nowhere name. This has been floated around. Yes, I do like his production and what he could possibly bring to Colorado. But again, you got rid of Tatar. Who would be next? Because it's you're not going to flip that 5th round pick right back to get.
That's not. No, it's got to be. If you're taking in that contract, there's got to be something that's going out too. And I pause a second to say this, but if they were so quick to get rid of Tomas Tatar, then I think, some of these other new guys maybe could be on the block too, namely Ryan Johansson.
Mm-hmm.
That could be somebody that, because he's found himself down to the 4th line, right? I don't think they've completely given up on him like they did on Tatar. But if you want to bring in Lindholm, you have to get rid of a contract. And it's 4.85 is his contract. And you're paying $4 million to Ryan Johansson. So, I mean, that could work. That would work there. So it might be something like that. And if they do that, then that's 2 guys the Avalanche brought in this offseason that would already be on their way out, and you haven't even hit the halfway point of the season yet. So it's got to be something like that. But it's just the question of, have they lost kind of the faith that Johansson can turn it around? I can't answer. I kind of feel like they haven't lost the faith in him yet. But it's like, do they want to wait around and continue to play this back and forth game? If they feel like Lindholm would be more of a solid 2C than Johansson is, or anybody else on the team for that matter, I think they go make that move if Calgary wants to bring in Johansson.
Yeah, but you bring up a fantastic point. If you get rid of Tatar and then you go get rid of Ryan Johansson, do you admit the offseason was a little bit of a failure?
Yeah, you kind of are. You kind of are. And
is that what
even
you
in saying
want?
that it's a failure, you're still in first place in the division, so you're going to make these moves as a first place team. But yeah, you kind of are saying like, yeah, these moves did not go the way that we wanted them to go. You are,
and yes, you've taken that shot, and everybody's taking notice of the moves you're about to make. But the statement you're making might be a little bit louder, and I don't know if that's something the Avalanche are going to want to take into that trade deadline, because when it comes to forwards, the Avalanche are really set. If they want to add something on defense or maybe another goalie, you never know.
right?
But that's what you're going to be admitting if you're going to be moving a player like Ryan Johansson.
And if you do it, like we said, you're moving two guys that you just signed. And do you really want to be playing that musical chairs game and kind of telling all these other guys that you just signed, like, we're not waiting around, like you need to pick it up like right away, or you're going to be on your way out, which is not the MO of the Avalanche. They are typically a patient team. And to sign guys and then 30 games into the season, throw in the towel on them is kind of the opposite way that they kind of handle things. So it'll be interesting to see if he is a guy, if Lindholm is a guy that they want to go after. That's a move that they would kind of have to make, because I can't really see anybody else that's, unless Calgary wants to pile some picks and some prospects, which I don't think the Avalanche want to do that either, for a potential rental, because he's an unrestricted after this year. So it's we'll see. We'll see where it goes. There's two other guys that have been floated around that we will get to. One guy, another one that you're hearing kind of year in and year out attached to the Avalanche. So we will get to that coming up next. But first, we are going to discuss FanDuel. And as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs, unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on during this hot NFL season, which is coming down to the wire. That is FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, so a couple other names I want to get to before we start talking about the Chicago Blackhawks versus the Colorado Avalanche, which is we are naming Avs versus Bedard Volume 2. We should just keep doing that. Should be like our playlist.
Yep.
Just keep voluming it up every time they play each other. But for right now, there's two other guys that we want to talk to. This was over on Mile High Sticking. I don't really know where they're pulling these two guys from, but hey, they're up on their site, so we'll talk about it. One is Sean Monahan, who just seems to be another guy that the Avs are always attached to. Especially last year. He was injured last year. I think that's kind of why they shied away from him with all the injuries that they had. They just want to include him into that mix. Playing better this year. And the other one is Morgan Frost from Philadelphia. As far as cap hits goes, both of those are much more palatable than what Lindholm would be. Monahan is at 1.985, while Frost is at 2.1. I wouldn't be, it's so weird, man. Like, I wouldn't be against either one of these, because Monahan is kind of having a pretty good bounce back season. And Frost has gone the other direction. Last year, he really stepped it up for Philly. And it's weird because this year Philly's playing better and his numbers are not what they've reverted to the year prior to last year, but he's still young. He's still a little bit raw, but he has immense talent. I don't even know. I haven't even really heard that Philly really wants to trade him, but I think he's been in the doghouse of Tortorella for a little while. Who hasn't? So if he's on the market, he's an interesting one because that is a guy the Avalanche would love, I feel, because he's young, he's got speed, and his contract goes this year and next year. And then after that, he's a restricted free agent. So this would be like Artturi Lehkonen version 2.0 right here. That would be one I'd pull the trigger on if Philly's willing to do it. I don't know if they are, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I like Morgan Frost out of the two. Again, you just described it. It's a project. Do you really want to take on a project 30 games into a season? Like the Avalanche are trying to find consistency. So why are we going to try and maintain one player or help another one bounce back? We have a team to try and get consistent. We don't need to rebuild someone's career.
I wouldn't do Frost because he's kind of playing a bigger role on Philly right now. Like he's on the power play 1 unit with them, which he's not going to be needed to do that. But does that solve like the 2C problem? I don't think so. No. I think Lindholm would. Monahan would. I think Monahan would just be one of those guys that just goes up and down based on how he's playing that day. And Frost is still learning the ropes, I kind of feel a little bit. So it's almost like you have, Lindholm is kind of like your sure thing, I would say, as much a sure thing as you could get as a 2C. And then the other guys are enticing, but do they make you better is the question. I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough. If it is, it's incremental. It's not like immediate overnight. You're so much better than you were the night before.
Yeah, so, if I was the Avalanche, I would be looking at the D. I would be looking at D core. I would add another piece there because the forwards, depending on the night, you're going to be fine. Defense has been shoddy at times, and the offense has been the one to bail them out.
We'll see. I mean, like you said, like the freeze is Tuesday night. So if the Avs want to do anything, which I don't think happens, I think they're going to be a little bit patient here. Because it's not like the trade deadline where you're going to see so many teams making moves and then they'll get the freeze and they can really kind of map out what they want to do over the freeze, which ends on the 28th, I believe, of December. And then maybe you see a move pretty quickly after that. We shall see. Where the Avs are heading Tuesday night is Chicago. And obviously, with Chicago, like once again, a lot of stuff, a lot of hubbub going on with the Chicago Blackhawks off the ice. That's kind of died down a little bit. On the ice, it's a nightmare. It's a disaster. I didn't think you knew Chicago was going to be, a bad team. I didn't think they were going to be this bad. They've had some injuries, sure, but the injured players and the terminated contract players would not get them really much further than they are right now. They're bad. They're 9-20-1 for 19 points. That is 9 points out of who's ahead of them in the Minnesota Wild. They're on a 4-game losing streak. This really needs to be a home run, no doubt. 2 points. Don't make this thing go deep into the third and it's still up in the air. Have a carbon copy of what the Sharks game was. Score 3 in the first, make Chicago come from behind, which it would be next to impossible for them to do. Make it difficult for them. Don't mess around, please.
Yeah, they shut them out 4-0 the first time they played Chicago. And for the OG Avalanche fans, this is an old rivalry from back in the day. The Avalanche Blackhawks, it's always a fun game. I mean, and Seth Jones will be coming back tonight for that game. So Seth versus Caleb, that'd be cool.
Okay. All right.
But that the Avalanche should not make this anything else. But look how much this is where Connor Bedard should be, but Nathan MacKinnon is there. This is where the standard is, not Bedard. And we can all just make Bedard jokes all night long. It's gonna be fun.
Is this thing on ESPN? I want to check really quick because if it is,
it's Plus, but so it's an altitude broadcast, I believe.
Okay. All right. Good. because as bad as Chicago is, if it's an ESPN broadcast, you wouldn't know that they're as bad as they are.
I would use a nickname or some other. I do not want to hear the word Bedard.
Oh my God, it's not. Having said that, he's living up to the billing this year. You know, he leads them in points. He's got 12 goals, 14 assists. That's 26 points. It's pretty close to a point per game player. He's 30 games played, 26 points. You know, when your team gives up a ton, you're going to be plus minus pretty heavily in the minus, and he's a minus 15. And again, take that stat with a grain of salt, but I mean, you can't say every one of those is a questionable. You know, they're a bad team, and most of the guys on this team are in the minus, right? But everything about them, their special teams is bad. Their goaltending is bad. Penalty kill is bad. It's just they're not good really in any one area. You look at just all your basic stats, and they are at the bottom for everything. Not surprising. When your record is like that, you're gonna be down there. I think the one thing that they're tied with the Avalanche on, I looked this up. I think it was shutouts. I had it up here and I lost it. I think they have the same amount of shutouts as the Avalanche do, believe it or not.
Well, I want that to be the only stat.
Yeah.
I don't. The Avalanche play down to their opponents, and this is not one you want to play down to.
No, I think you look at this one and be like, we can't play. We can't do that. We cannot do that for this game. They are so far below us. We play down to that level, and we have some serious problems here. So we'll see.
There are no excuses for a slow start or just a tight game overtime. There are no excuses for an egg through this game.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. But what we're going to do next, we got some questions from our subtext people, some pretty good ones here. So we will get to those coming up next. Right now we have Game Time and the Game Time app, and you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, because Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seats, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. We just used Game Time this past weekend. Guess where we took the kids, Mr. Sullivan? Disney on Ice. That is right, sir. Every December they come to this area, and we went yet again. It's crazy. Like I'm impressed with it. It's like a Pixar movie. It's like the kids are fun or having a ball because it's all these, Disney characters, and just the aerobics that these people do. Just it's like Cirque du Soleil. Like in the air, you're just like, oh my God, like if this person falls, they're gonna die.
It's the most underrated thing Disney puts on.
It's crazy, and it's very entertaining. And we did buy those tickets right on Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So create the account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, subtext. Our subtext people came through with some pretty good questions here. So let's just jump right into these. This is from Keegan. How legit is the top of the Central Division compared to the rest of the NHL? Right now, they sit behind the Pacific in the top team standings. But could that change when Colorado, Dallas, and Winnipeg do not play each other for the rest of December? The way I'm going to phrase this to you, sir, is take the top three teams from each division and kind of power rank the divisions just based on that. Just based on the top three teams as they sit right now. Where would you put the Avs? What or not the Avs, just the Central?
The Atlantic, the Pacific, the Central, Metro.
Which is so weird that the Metro would be fourth right now, because here's your Metro, like the Rangers, who are probably the number one overall team. So you would think that'd prop them up a little bit. But 2 and 3 are the Flyers, who again, going back to the Morgan Frost thing, do they even want to make a trade because of where they are?
Sure.
I don't know. And then the Islanders are in third right now. Carolina's not even in there. The Devils aren't even in there. So two of those teams that you would think would be high up are not. So it's bizarre. You probably have the number one overall team, but those other two teams really do drag them down. In the Atlantic, Bruins, Maple Leafs, and Panthers. The Panthers just don't scare me still. I know they made the Stanley Cup last year, but that was just a little bit fluky. Congratulations. I don't know. And once again, you have the Bruins at the top.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like the Pacific is solid.
Yeah.
As much as I hate Vegas, the Canucks are solid and the Kings are a solid team. They might be the best one in my humble opinion. That might be the top three for a division. Where the Avs and the Jets and Stars, I'd put them.
I put them at 3. They're the 4.
Yeah, I'd put them. Yeah, probably. I think 3 is fair. I think that's fair right now because those teams are not playing. Winnipeg's playing good, but they're right now in third. No, they're in second. They're tied. Okay, yeah, they're tied. With Jets and Stars are tied at 38. So.
At the time of recording, the Jets are losing and the Stars are winning, so they could flip flop that all year long.
Switch, yeah. I know we're kind of just going all over the place, Keegan. I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't. They're not the top 3 teams division wise in the league. I think we can safely say that.
And like the way you were talking about Florida reminds me of the early run of that Tampa Bay Lightning team. Yes, I know they were in the Cup last year, but they're still hanging around. Florida doesn't scare you. But the playoffs, they're a different animal. So don't count them out just yet.
Yeah, I hear you. This is from Vargar. If you could plop 2 players from other teams on the Avs right now, regardless of cap, who would you pick? So basically, who's our favorite players that we want to see playing on the Avalanche? And if you had a time machine, what would you want to go back and see? One Avs related and one historical event, please. He does ask a question about Star Wars films, which would take way too long, which we will answer another time because that's a half-hour question in and of itself. So if you just take 2 players, doesn't matter what the cap is, who are you taking?
Nazem Kadri and Trevor Zegras, baby.
Oh yeah, that's easy for you. You take Kadri back. Yeah, that makes sense.
I would take him back in a heartbeat. That's who I would make the trade for. If I'm talking to Calgary, I tell Lindholm, put the phone down. Give me Nas.
For me, everybody knows I'm a Gossespierre fan, so I would take Shane Gossespierre. And as the Rangers are my East Coast team, Mika Zibanejad is probably my favorite guy on the Rangers. And I just love his attitude. He just has this. He DJs in the offseason for crying out loud. Like, come on now. With the Avs are struggling to find like their team song right now. He'd come in and be like, I will create your team song for you.
Dude, what if we had both of our favorite players with the last name that starts with Z on our team? We'd have the coolest vibes.
Oh
ever.
Man. And those 2 guys could play on the same line together. That could be the Z line. Come on now.
And Nikita Zadorov.
Bring Zadorov back and put him at forward? Sure. Why not? Let's do it. Kyle asks, not you. What's the best way to indoctrinate? I mean, introduce. Oh wait, we got to go back to the Vargar one.
Oh,
of two moments. One was an Avs moment, and one was just a historical moment.
I would love to go to opening night for the Colorado Avalanche at McNichols. Never got to go to McNichols, and I heard it was in a crazy environment. I know the Dead played there a lot. I'd like to go and just experience a game at McNichols.
And then do you have a non-Avalanche moment or a historical moment?
You know what? It's still Avalanche. I would like to go back and relive 0-1 Stanley Cup between the Avs and Devils.
For me, that would be my Avalanche moment. Is
really?
the Ray Bork one, just reliving that or being there for it would just be just knowing how it's still used today in so many like NHL promos to say like I was there for that when every time you see it would just kind of like be a special moment.
It really would.
Non-hockey, non-Avalanche, just historical moment. Maybe it's not historical, but for me, I wish I could relive the moment in Avengers Endgame when
Oh
Thor's
yeah.
hammer lifts up and who gets it? Captain
Yeah.
America. I wish I could like go back to, I wish I have the Men in Black erase my memory thing for that to experience that for the first time again, because in all my days of going to movies, I've never been so like floored and just cheering in the theater as that moment.
That's a
One of the
great
greatest
great
moments
moment.
in cinema history, if you ask me, and that's including anything Godfather or Citizen Kane or Gone with the Wind. To me, that is up there.
Eras tour.
Uh,
Continue.
Fantastic. We'll get to the Kyle one now. What's the best way to indoctrinate, introduce someone to the sport of hockey and the Colorado Avalanche? I do this every year, man. I do this every single year. You kind of have to start them at the end. And maybe not the Stanley Cup final, but just the playoffs. If you can tell some, and it's worked a lot of times where I've had people, and not even that I've turned them onto it this way, but they've come to me knowing what I do and just say like, well, I started watching the playoffs or the NHL playoffs just because it's the playoffs, and are all of the playoffs like that? And I'm like, yeah. And I don't want to say like they hang around like when the next season starts, because it's a long season. It's tough to watch any, basketball or hockey for an entire season, but they will get back into it once the playoffs come back around again. I think that's the best place to start.
The easy answer is you pull up ESPN's Quest for the Cup and you give them that reality show kind of vibe. They experience the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They get to know the players, and then take them back to the NHL seasons that ESPN put on in 2004. The documentary on the 2004 Colorado Avalanche team. That's another fantastic way to get them into the Avalanche, and you just show them what our current product is today.
Yeah.
Make that relation between fan and player. You got them.
Yeah, I think that's good too. Yeah, get them into some documentaries, some movies, maybe show them Miracle.
Slapshot.
Slapshot. Some 30 for 30s. Yeah, kind of just throw all that stuff at them as well. So yeah, that's good. That's good. Tanya did ask a question, but I think we kind of answered it earlier. She asked a lot about like, trades and stuff like that. So Tanya, thank you for the question, but I hope we answered that a little bit early on. So
yes, but not yet.
Yeah. So, all right, that is going to wrap it up for today, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. Like always, that is appreciated. We will be back tomorrow to discuss this Avalanche and Blackhawks game. And if they made a move, we shall see. We don't know. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.